It's always a momentous occasion whenever Jeep updates one of its icons, and that day is today. This is the new 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. The L stands for, I guess, longer. It's a three-row version of the Grand Cherokee, the first ever. Now, it's very important for Jeep to get this vehicle right. It makes a lot of money for the company. So we've come here to Jeep's Proving Grounds in Chelsea, Michigan to try the new Grand Cherokee L to see if this all-new Jeep Grand Cherokee is as good as the previous ones.
There are a few distinctive elements that make any Jeep a Jeep, and those elements are maintained on the new Grand Cherokee L as well. The 7-slot grille will always be there, as will the squared-off wheel arches, but there are new elements as well, fresh for 2021, like the big upright front end with the standard LED headlights and active grille shutters for improved aerodynamics. There's also a floating roof look, with a neat piece of brightwork trim that starts at the tips of the side view mirrors and extends up and over the side windows and down the back liftgate in one seamless flowing arc. I think it looks fantastic, and the extra length of this extended wheelbase Grand Cherokee L model to accommodate a third row inside doesn't seem out of place, unusual, or ill-proportioned at all. The rear-wheel drive platform that underpins the Grand Cherokee L is longer and taller, but no wider than the outgoing one. But the emphasis on horizontal lines makes it look and feel wider. From the short front overhang to the well-proportioned upswept lines in the rear, this new Grand Cherokee L is instantly identifiable as a Jeep SUV, but also doesn't feel retro or stodgy in the slightest. Opt for the top-of-the-line Summit Reserve trim, and you can even spec 21-inch wheels that look incredible. So they most definitely didn't ruin the way the new Grand Cherokee looks with this new one. Grand Cherokee L models will be offered in both rear and all-wheel drive, with 3 different four-wheel drive systems to choose from depending on trim level. The standard engine across all 4 trim models, Laredo, Limited, Overland, and Summit, is the familiar 3.6-liter V6. The optional motor, only available in the Overland and Summit, is the venerable 5.7-liter Hemi V8. Both engines are mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Rear-wheel drive is standard, but four-wheel drive is an option. The Laredo and Limited get the QuadraTrack 1 full-time four-wheel drive system, but the more off-road oriented Overland gets the QuadraTrack 2, featuring a 2-speed transfer case with a low range. The top Summit model gets the QuadraDrive 2 system that adds an electronic limited slip differential, but that's also available on the Overland as part of an option package. I was able to sample 2 versions of the Grand Cherokee L, a V6-powered Overland and a V8-powered Summit. The V6 provides adequate punch off the line, but its job is more about smoothness and efficiency than brute power. The Grand Cherokee L simply felt big around town and out on the highway, but the new steering and suspension tuning do work to give it a very well buttoned-down feel. It feels like a big, substantial SUV because that's exactly what it is, but it's not floaty, not tippy, and it exhibits outstanding body control. Even the brakes feel excellent, with a firm, progressive feel that isn't grabby or soft. You can hustle the big SUV around on twisty back roads to levels that would make the family protest in nausea if you're so inclined, but it really is happiest just being a big, plush station wagon that can also scale impressive boulders if it needs to. Moving up a few more kilodollars on the price spectrum to the Summit model equipped with the Hemi V8 brings an entirely different perspective.
The interior is an upgrade like, well, you wouldn't expect to see out of a Jeep product. It's almost Land Rover quality in here. Just the stitching, the quality of the leather, the wood, the overall design, it really does feel premium and upscale. The driving experience is outstanding as well. They've really made some good refinements to the Grand Cherokee. The 5.7-liter V8 in this model is outstanding. The 3.6-liter V6, which is standard, is also very good, but this thing just has the punch and the power and the super smooth delivery that really fits better with the whole premium nature, at least of this trim model.
Overall, every level of the new Grand Cherokee L's driving dynamics feels top-notch, sophisticated, and more refined than the previous model, which wasn't exactly deficient in this department to begin with. The biggest improvement might be in steering feel. Jeep engineers have managed to make an SUV that provides both ease of use and sufficient responsiveness and feedback so as not to feel like you're using a video game steering wheel, something that can't be said for some other big 3-row SUVs. Of course, no update to a Jeep Grand Cherokee, new long wheelbase or not, would be appropriate without a demonstration of its continued off-road prowess, and this model is certainly no slouch in that task either. Jeep set up an off-road course at Jeep's Proving Grounds at Chelsea, Michigan, and sent us through it in Overland models, which are currently the best equipped models to handle such activities, until a new Trailhawk arrives, if it does, for the Grand Cherokee L. All models get a variant of the new Select Terrain system that adjusts things like throttle, braking, all-wheel drive engagement, torque split, and other systems per the environment being traversed. There's honestly not much to say here except that the new Grand Cherokee L scales anything you throw at it with a level of posh, air-conditioned comfort that honestly feels like cheating. Going over a hill of boulders is supposed to be challenging, rough work, but you can sit back, turn on the massaging seats, enjoy the lush Macintosh-branded premium audio system, and let the Jeep do all the work. The new Grand Cherokee L has more ground clearance than the old Grand Cherokee and still features the requisite underbody skid plate protection and outstanding approach and departure angles that'll help it scale terrain that you'd have trouble walking over. Now, did I say massaging seats? Yeah, I sure did. Jeep and all the brands at parent company Stellantis, formerly known as Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, have been producing some amazing interiors in recent years. With the designers setting their sights on the new Jeep Grand Cherokee, you'd expect that the next generation model would be something special inside, and you'd be right. Everything inside is new, with a new design theme too, a kind of wing that extends from side to side, again emphasizing the width of the cabin, despite the fact that the SUV isn't any wider than the outgoing one. Panels slope away from the driver to aid in that feeling of expansiveness, and in higher trim models, 10.25-inch digital screens are seemingly everywhere.
The digital gauges in the new Grand Cherokee look top-notch as well. Super clear, super easy to read. There's a heads-up display as well that does dim a little bit when you're wearing sunglasses, but is still pretty legible and easy to read. The reconfigurability of all these screens in here is really what makes this special. You can choose what you want to display on the gauge cluster, on the center console screen, on the heads-up display, and mix and match as you like. The new Uconnect 5 system is really meant for that kind of customizability. You can add pages to it, you can add shortcuts, you can determine what icons you want front and center and which ones you want relegated to, say, secondary status. You can even change what you want along the top of the screen for super simple, easy access. The level of customizability and the ability to still have a phone plugged in for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto and still use the native systems like navigation is really kind of what sets Uconnect 5 apart from the latest Ford Sync system.
Material quality is outstanding across the board. Even the basic Laredo has really fine cloth seats, stitching on the dash and doors, even the rear doors, and high-quality soft-touch plastics all the way through. The top-of-the-line Summit Reserve model is just outright stunning, especially in its exclusive Tupelo brown and black interior. Leather quality is excellent, the metal trim looks and feels like metal trim, the steering wheel is chunky and hefty in your hands, and all the controls are easily laid out.
The only areas where I have a little bit of problem with this new Grand Cherokee interior is really to do with the climate control system. The orientation of a number of these buttons is very vertical while everything else is kind of sloped. So it's a little hard to see some of the buttons along the bottom row of the climate control system.
But the point of the L in the Grand Cherokee L is the fact that this is a 3-row Grand, the first ever. Jeep engineers did a decent job of putting room for 2 in the cargo area, with a seat that's easy to get into and out of thanks to the tilt and slide second row, and that's wide enough and tall enough to fit 2 full-sized humans in it in a pinch. The fact that the second row slides is key, however, as it will be necessary for second and third row passengers to negotiate legroom between them. There isn't much footroom in the third row for adults, and the high floor in the rear does result in a knees-up seating position not unlike that in the Ford Explorer. It's not as spacious in that third row like it is in the Volkswagen Atlas or Hyundai Palisade, but then neither of those front-wheel drive car-based crossover SUVs has the capability that the Grand Cherokee L delivers for towing, off-roading, or even flat-out luxuriousness. While the top-spec models of the Grand Cherokee have been increasingly seen as viable luxury vehicles and status symbols, it's good to know that Jeep hasn't completely abandoned the lower end of the family spectrum with this latest update. The entry trim for the Grand Cherokee L will be the Laredo trim, with rear-wheel drive, starting at $38,690, including an increasingly obscene $1,695 delivery fee. Add $2,000 for 4x4 across the board to all of these prices. Up from the Laredo is the slightly nicer limited model for $45,690, while the Overland off-road oriented trim starts at a heftier $54,690. The most luxurious version is the Summit, which starts at $58,690, while the nearly loaded Summit Reserve will run you $63,690, which, as I mentioned before, is Land Rover territory. That's quite a spread in pricing between the topmost and lowest trim levels, more than $30,000. But it's not all that different from the range the Grand Cherokee commands today. The new one maintains its status as an excellent off-roader and luxurious SUV, but now adds a greater dash of practicality as a family vehicle thanks to the expanded seating situation. Unless you think $64,000 is a lot of money for a Jeep SUV, don't forget that the new Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer are also on the way, bigger body-on-frame truck-based SUVs that will hit the $100,000 mark fully optioned up. But if you don't need something quite so big and ostentatious, the new 21 Grand Cherokee L is easily a match for the latest Ford Explorer or nearly any of the rear-wheel drive SUVs still out there, and better than a lot of the front-wheel drive ones too. The refinements to the new Jeep Grand Cherokee really have paid off. It's a more premium vehicle than it was before, it drives better, it's more capable than before, it's not even really that much more expensive, but it is really a great update to what has become an iconic vehicle for the Jeep brand. If you'd like to learn more about the new 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L, you can learn everything you need to know on Cars.com.